Good morning. Welcome to worship at Harrow United Church. We continue to journey through the season of Epiphany. The name means revealing or uncovering the light. We pray our time together brings both light and hope to your day. If you'd like to share your thoughts and feelings or ask for prayer, drop us a line at virtuallyinharrow@gmail.com. Our annual Congregational Meeting will be on February the 6th, which will also be Communion Sunday. As the name suggests, we have a meeting once a year to pass a budget for the upcoming year and to hear about the work of our leaders and our committees. We are planning to present as many reports as possible in video form. Copies of the annual report will be available next Sunday for you, and you can pick them up and take them home and review them. And it will also be available online. The Hucksters walking team is seeking members. And we're also seeking donors for this year's coldest night of the year fundraising walk for Windsor's downtown mission. We are currently in first place on the fundraising scoreboard for the mission and a quarter of the way to our goal of $10,000. I think we're beyond that now, but I haven't checked lately. If you wish to walk, you can talk to our team captain, Barry Mannell. If you wish to donate to any of the walkers, Darrow as well. Oh, Beth's here. Yeah. You walking, Jill? No, Jill's not walking. If you want to donate to any of us, then we will be happy to receive.
Thanks, John. So if you drove here this morning and you got into the parking lot, that's because Dennis McLean was out early plowing it out for us. So if you're watching, Dennis, thank you for this. We appreciate it. Oh, he was on duty for the week, yeah. And I talked to Dennis before he left the parking lot, and he was saying that now would be a perfect place to play road hockey because it's still a little bit slippery underneath the snow, so when you go out, be careful. I'm going to ring the prayer bowl in a moment to give us a chance to kind of calm down and place ourselves in God's presence. Well, it'll begin and end a moment of silence. And in that moment of silence, I invite you to pay attention to your body, how you feel today. Pay attention to your breath. And be intentional about taking some slow breaths in and out, and then breathing them out. And as you breathe in, think about God's love filling you up. And as you breathe out, think about sharing that love with the world. God's love in and God's love out. This book is called Unsettling the Word. It was published by the Mennonite Church in Canada, and it contains the efforts of about 40 different writers who seek to liberate the Bible from all the ways it's been misused over the centuries to support bad ideas, particularly bad ideas about racial superiority or the right of one people to come in and take over the land of another people. The work they're doing is called decolonizing the Bible, taking the colonial superiority ideas out of how we read it. This morning's gospel lesson describes the moment when Jesus announces his mission in front of the hometown crowd at his Nazareth synagogue. There's a couple who live in Waterloo who wrote a reflection on that scripture in the form of a letter to their unborn child. Moving to a season of hope, anticipating new life, we consider matters of faith, land, and justice as we ponder the world a little one might enter. In this light we write, to our unborn child, you were born into a beautiful and messy world. We are your parents, and we deeply love you. We are sorry that the world we brought you into is so messy that it divides black and white, good and bad, conservative and liberal. This is not the way that Creator made the world. We are Christian. We follow and love Jesus. It's our gift for you, and you can choose to do with it whatever your heart tells you. But Christians have carried a curse into this land. Some would pretend that God favors us because we are Christian, because we are good, a chosen people, the Lord's anointed. We Christians went to the ends of the world and shared our good news. Many believe that we did what we were supposed to do. We saw the unenlightened, those with different cultures and traditions, and we tried to make them like us. We thought our voices, our stories were the only ones, the sacred ones. We were so quick to spread our gospel that we forgot to listen to the wisdom in the cultures we discovered. Jesus was good at listening. We shut ears and hearts to the sacred ones as we built up a large country in our own image. Child, when we forgot to listen, we forgot who we are. We pray for you as we pray for ourselves. May your heart be moved to pursue the well-being of others, the prisoners, the blind, and the oppressed. May you see their beauty and their light, and may they see yours. It's time to listen. Be brave, child. Listen to your heart. Listen to the voices of those overlooked. Listen to the land. Listen to the Spirit's movement. You were born into a beautiful world. Messy, but beautiful. Go listen and receive light. Go listen and share your light too. We are on land honored by the wampum treaties, agreements between the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenni, Lenape, and allied nations to share and care for the resources all around these Great Lakes. We acknowledge the presence of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ojibwe, the Odawa, the Potawatomi, and Huron-Wendat peoples, and the Caldwell First Nation. We share history, and we desire a better future with all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We gather in this place and we seek light and hope. We light the Christ candle to remind us that God is with us. God is the source of the light and the hope we need.
Here's my story. The twins, Jilly and Billy, were trying to put their bicycles away for the winter, but there was a problem. Somehow, the backyard shed seemed to have shrunk because last winter, they were able to put both their bikes, the yellow one and the purple one, in the shed fine. But this winter, they wouldn't fit. No matter how many times they tried, they'd push the bicycle in, but the back end would stick out the door and they couldn't close the door. They tried 17 times and they couldn't make it work. Then they dragged out all the folding lawn chairs and they took out the wading pool the little sister liked to use to give their dog a bath. But even with all that stuff out on the back lawn, they still couldn't make the bikes fit. They would roll the bike in and they would roll it in really fast, and the front tire would hit the back wall of the shed, and the back tire would still stick out the door, and they couldn't close the door. Something happened. The bikes were either too long or the shed got small. They just couldn't figure it out. They tried and tried and tried, and then Billy said, "You know what we got to do? Let's ask Mom. She'll know how to fix it." But Jilly said, "No, yeah, we could do that, but then she's going to give us other jobs. Like she'll say, put away the tennis rackets and the soccer balls and the hockey net. And I don't want to do all that work. I just want to put our bicycles away and then go inside and play Minecraft." Billy said, yeah. Then she's going to say we're spending too much time on the computer, and she'll make us go back outside, and she'll have this big list of all the things she wants us to do. And Billy said, "Yeah, I can already hear her voice in my head. It's annoying. She'll say something like, if you don't take care of all your stuff, you're not going to get new stuff from me because money doesn't." And Jilly jumped in and said, "Money doesn't grow on trees." And the worst part is, she's right. If we leave all this stuff out all winter, it won't be good. The bicycles will rust, things will get broken, or when spring comes and the snow melts, everything's going to get covered with mud. Billy said, "I hate it when she's right, but I like my bike. I like all this stuff." Jilly said, "Does that mean you want to ask her?" Billy said, "Nope. It means I want you to ask her." So Jilly went in the house, talked to Mom, and she said, "Stupid Billy can't figure out how to put the bikes away." Mom gave Jilly that look, the one that says, even without saying the words, Jilly knew Mom didn't want her to say the word stupid. That's not a good word. Don't call your brother stupid. And then Mom told her all about the hooks in the ceiling where they hang the bikes like they did last year in the shed. So that's my story. And here's the question. Did you ever have a time when you knew someone was right? You knew they had the exact right thing to do, but you didn't want to do it. You didn't want to hear about it. In other words, are there times when you don't want to be told what to do? Yeah. Me too. Here's my story about Jesus, and it's from Mark's Gospel. And it's about this time when he was trying to tell people something and they didn't want to hear it. Jesus went to the synagogue, which was like church for the Jewish people. He went to the front, and it was his turn to read from the Bible. He was reading from the Hebrew book of Scripture, which we call the Old Testament. He read this part that talked about good news. And it said that the poor people were going to be helped. People who felt trapped and in trouble would be made to feel free. And those who were sick, they would feel better. He did a good job reading. And someone in the synagogue said, "Way to go, Jesus. You read those words really well." And other people said things like, "I know his dad, Joseph the carpenter, and I know Mary too." And someone else said, "I remember when he was a little kid, playing with the other little kids. Now look, he's all grown up." And Jesus said, "You might think I read well And you might think these are just words, fancy words from our tradition. But what if I told you that I came here today to announce that God wants us to start making all these good things happen? Someone in the synagogue said, "Hey, you can't talk to us like that. Just like you, we're descended from God's people. God chose us for great things." Jesus said, "Yeah, exactly. So let's get busy. Let's clean up all the messes. Let's make things better for people. And it starts with you." These aren't just pretty words to hear in synagogue. This is how we're supposed to treat each other. So minutes before, these people who had been saying, "Oh, I remember Jesus when he was a little boy. What a good guy he is. He reads so well." They've been so proud of him. Now they were mad. They were really angry with him. They didn't want to be told what to do. And it didn't matter if he was right or not. It didn't matter if it was true. You should take care of poor people and help the sick and help make things better. They didn't want to be told what to do. And they said things like, "You can't tell us what to do. Who do you think you are?" And Jesus looked at them and said, "You know what? I'm the one God sent to tell you what you need to do." The people got really mad then, and they all stood up and they got really angry, and they grabbed Jesus. They dragged him out of the synagogue. They dragged him across town. They brought him to the edge of the hill the town was built on, and they were getting ready to throw him off the hill. And then something happened, and he got away. That's the story. Have you heard that story before? Can you turn your microphones on? So have any of you heard that story before?
No.
So when I was growing up, the stories I heard about Jesus, it sounded like everybody liked him. But there are a few stories like this in the Bible where Jesus is saying things people don't want to hear. And he gets in trouble. Even with people that were so proud of him, they thought he was a good little kid when he was growing up. When he got to be an adult and started telling them things that God wanted them to do, they didn't always want to hear it. I have a prayer, and you guys who were here last week, you remember it. It's a repeat after me prayer. So when it's a repeat after me prayer, what do you do?
Repeat after you.
Exactly. Thanks, Dylan. So it goes like this. Dear God,
Dear God,
Dear God,
help us to listen when we need to listen.
help us to
help us
listen.
when we need
To listen.
Help us to do the right thing, even when we don't feel like it.
To do the right thing.
Even when we don't feel like it.
Even
We don't feel like it.
We pray
we pray
for people who are sick,
for people who are sick,
for people who are sad,
for people
for
who
people who
are
are
sad,
sad,
for people who are hungry,
for people
who are hungry,
and for people who feel lonely.
and
for
for
people who feel lonely.
Help us
help
help
us
us
to find ways
find
find
ways
ways
to help people
to
to
help
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 and help us
and help us
us
to be more like Jesus.
to
to
be
be
more
more like
Jesus.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you for being part of the class this morning, the children's time.
Mhm.
So thank you for coming. And I'll see you next week.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for having the children now involved, because they're growing up and we haven't seen them for a while and go, oh, my goodness. Well, we had Ben last year when we did the confirmation classes, and yeah, and Jeff Chickus wants him in the choir singing bass. So. So thank you. When we make our offerings of time, energy, creativity, hard work, and money, we are following the Jesus way and helping to shine a light of hope in our world. Would you pray with me? Dear God of light and love, Jesus did what he could when help was needed. He even stepped in to make sure the wedding guests could have another glass of wine. Bless our efforts to make things better. Amen. And in our responsive prayer, God, your whole creation displays your glory. The universe, beautiful song. Your word gives life. It restores the breath of our souls. Your word gives life. Oh, but who can see it in their own faults? The reading today is from Luke chapter 4, verses 16 to 30, from the Message. Jesus came to Nazareth, where he had been raised. As he always did on the Sabbath, he went to the meeting place. When he stood up to read, he was handed the scroll of the prophet Isaiah. Unrolling the scroll, he found the place where it was written, God's Spirit is on me. He's chosen me to preach the message of good news to the poor, sent me to announce the pardon to prisoners and recovery of sight to the blind, to set the burdened and battered free, to announce this is God's time to shine. He rolled up the scroll, handed it back to the assistant, and sat down. Every eye on the place was on him, intent. And then he started in. You've heard the scripture make history. It came true just now in this place. All who were there, watching and listening, were surprised at how well he spoke. But they also said, Isn't this Joseph's son, the one we've known since he was a kid? He answered, I suppose you're going to quote the proverb, Doctor, go heal yourself. Do here in your hometown what we've heard you did in Capernaum. Well, let me tell you something. No prophet is ever welcomed in his hometown. Isn't it a fact that there were many widows in Israel at the time of Elijah during the 3.5 years of drought when famine devastated the land? But the only widow to whom Elijah was sent was in Sarepta in Sidon. There were many lepers in Israel at the time of the prophet Elisha, but only one was cleansed, named Naaman, the Syrian. And that set everybody in the meeting place seething with anger. They threw him out, banishing him from the village, then took him to the mountain cliff at the edge of the village to throw him to his doom. But he gave them the slip and was on his way.
Thank you, Larry. Did everybody say good morning to Larry? It's time for the 7th inning stretch. So if you'd like to stand up and stretch, be careful not to bang into whoever's closest to you. You can swing around. This is our prayer aerobic time. This morning's 7th inning stretch is brought to you by The Big Read. On Tuesday, March 8th in the evening, my wife Lexi and I are going to host a Zoom meeting where we talk about this book, The Undertaking of Billy Buffoni. It was written by David Giuliano, who's a retired United Church minister who grew up in Windsor and who had his whole ministry in Marathon. The book is set in Marathon. It's a very well-written book, and if you want a copy of it, we've made a deal with the publisher. We can order paperbacks, and she'll send them to us for the cover price, $22.95, no tax, no shipping. So let me know if you'd like a copy and if you'd like to be part of the talk. So on March 8th, we'll have just a group discussion about the book and what we thought of it. On March 15th, we'll do it again, and David's going to join us on the Zoom. So if you have any questions for the author, that's kind of a cool opportunity. That's our 7th inning stretch. You can be seated.
Tonight's Indigenous Circle, CTV's Kristen Ajgate, has a profile of Autumn Peltier.
And the water started to become clean.
A documentary that premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival put a new spotlight on Autumn Peltier's critical cause.
Water is a basic human right, and nobody should not have access to clean drinking water.
It's a message she brought all the way to the United Nations in 2018 and in 2019.
We can't eat money or drink oil.
Even directly to the Prime Minister, she urged him to ensure clean drinking water in all First Nations in Canada.
I'm still holding that accountable to him because I'm not going to forget that. When you think about Canada, you don't imagine having a crisis or an issue this big because we're looked at as a rich country.
And her message has also been amplified alongside Greta Thunberg. The Trudeau government promised to end all long-term boil water advisories on reserves by March 2021. 88 have been lifted, but 61 remain. One of her reasons her work hasn't stopped, even during the pandemic.
A lot of the decisions we're making today are going to impact our future.
Her mom is a source of her inspiration.
You know, I'm really proud of her, and not only that, I think about how there's a lot of us Indigenous women, and how I think about how we need to empower each other.
Another is her late great-auntie Josephine Mandamin, who lobbied tirelessly for the protection of the Great Lakes. She passed away in February of last year.
She gave me my first teachings on the water. She taught me how to become the woman I am today.
Peltier continues her work in her honor and has taken over her role as Chief Water Commissioner. She now has her sights set on Parliament Hill.
I feel like it would be a really cool opportunity to be able to say that there was a First Nations Prime Minister, as this is kind of where we come from. This is originally our land.
A young leader determined to protect this land and its water, to inspire others to do the same. Kristen Ajgate, CTV News, Ottawa.
The first time I was asked to read scripture in my home congregation, I was honored and afraid and worried about getting it right. This was different from teaching Sunday school or giving presentations at school or even making speeches, which I'd done for school assemblies loads of times. So I'm always grateful to our lay readers on Sunday mornings because I remember how hard it was to get up and do that. That evening, the sanctuary was dark. The lights were down low because it was a Christmas Eve service. And later at the end, we'd be passing the flame from candle to candle. The chancel area was lit from above with a tiny spotlight, just enough light for me to find my way up the carpeted steps and not trip. It was good the lights were low because I couldn't really see the people's faces in the crowd. I read from Isaiah, Not the part that Jesus read from today in today's gospel, but an earlier part in chapter 9 where it says, "The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light." And the passage ends up with, "For a child has been born for us, a son given to us. Authority rests on his shoulders. He's named Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." I'd written all those words out on a piece of paper, because this is way before I had a computer. And I brought it up there with me so I wouldn't have to hunt for the right page in the big pulpit Bible. And I copied the passage from the Good News Bible because it was way easier to read than the version the minister liked to use. Even so, I stumbled over the words. I raced through the passage. I probably read the whole thing without taking a breath. And then it was done. I stood there feeling relieved, but also a little embarrassed because I felt like I'd done a bad job. I focused on not tripping as I went down the chancel steps and back to my seat, but I had to walk all the way to the very back of the church by all those people and then go up the steps because my family was up in the balcony. So I like to imagine what it was like for Jesus, reading from the scroll of Isaiah back in his hometown, in his home synagogue, in front of people who had watched him grow up. He was reading along and saying out loud, "God's Spirit is on me. He's chosen me to preach the message of good news to the poor, sent me to announce pardon to the prisoners and recovery of sight to the blind, to set the burdened and battered free." Maybe as he's reading, Jesus realized, maybe not for the first time, that for him, these beautiful words from Scripture were not just ancient words from an old scroll. They lit a fire inside him, and he burned with a powerful, maybe overwhelming awareness that those words were for him, for his time, for his place, and for his life. And that he'd been given a job of telling people to change their own lives and change the world so that things would be better. Jesus knew he'd be calling people that he knew his whole life, who had watched him grow up. And he'd have to say to them, "You know, the world's a mess. We got to fix it. So you and me, we got to get busy. Cleanup starts right here and right now with us." So how would the hometown crowd take it? Well, he probably knew it wouldn't go well. And it didn't. They got really mad at him and they threatened to throw him off a cliff. I've been reading more about Autumn Peltier, the young woman we just saw in the video. And as it said in the video, when she was 12 years old, she was chosen to give a gift to the Prime Minister. It was at a meeting of the Assembly of First Nations in Gatineau, Quebec. And the organizers, her elders in the First Nations, ahead of time they said, "Don't talk. Don't say a word to the Prime Minister. Just walk up and smile and give him his gift and then get out of there as quick as you can." And she tried. She tried to do what the organizers told her. But she got up there, face to face with the Prime Minister of Canada, looking up, I guess, with the gift in her hands, and she found she couldn't not speak. She just had to tell him. And her words came out in a wash of tears as she told the Prime Minister what was on her heart. She challenged his environmental record, and this 12-year-old girl told the Prime Minister he was failing in his duties and he was breaking his promise because First Nations people, too many of them, still don't have safe water to drink. If you look at the Maclean's magazine this month, there's an extensive interview with Autumn. In it, she says, "That was my opportunity to say something to the literal Prime Minister of Canada. Like, who gets the chance to actually share their thoughts with him? So I took the opportunity. I gave him a piece of my mind." She said, "He made a big promise to me that day, which was, I will protect the water. I was 12 at the time, I'm 17 years old now, and I'm still holding him accountable to that promise." The interviewer asked her, "Do you believe he cares about that?" She said, "I feel like he could care more. I know his government did make a commitment to resolve all boil water advisories in Canada by March of 2021, and of course that didn't happen. To promise to resolve a big issue like that within a certain amount of time and not do it, and there are still communities that can't drink their water after over 25 years, how are we supposed to trust the government? How are we supposed to believe him?" She asks good questions. And they're not about partisan politics. They're about human rights and our environment and long-standing commitments, promises that have been made, that have been broken for generations. Not everyone appreciates what she has to say. She said, "I get a lot of negative comments, negative feedback. It's a lot more than I thought I would get because the work I do is for a good reason. And you wouldn't generally think that people would be against this or try to bring me down. Like, she's just a kid, what can she do? Or, why does she think that what she says matters?" The thing is, it's not just Autumn Pelchier saying out loud that the government has failed to do what it promised us and the people of many First Nation communities. The most recent Auditor General's report says, overall, Indigenous Services Canada did not provide the support necessary to ensure that First Nations communities have ongoing access to safe drinking water. Drinking water advisories remain a constant for many communities, with almost half of the existing advisories in place for more than a decade. That's the Government of Canada talking to the Government of Canada. And Indigenous Services Canada, their response to the Auditor General report was, yes, we agree. We have failed. According to the Government of Canada, right as of January 7th, there are 37 water advisories in place in 29 First Nations communities. 28 of those are in Ontario, and they affect 21 communities. Can you imagine how quickly the situation would be remedied if it happened where we live? As Autumn Pelchier said in the Maclean's interview, just think about how fast it would be resolved and fixed if there was a drinking water issue in an area like Toronto or Ottawa. How fast they'd call a state of emergency and how fast they would fix it. But a First Nations community of 200, 300, 400 people can go without clean drinking water for over 30 years, where they literally have to bathe their babies in bottled water, cook and clean with bottled water, wash themselves with bottled water. She doesn't pull any punches. We need people like Autumn Pelchier who do what Jesus did. They recognize their calling to stand up for what's right, to challenge what's wrong, to point out what needs to be fixed. But, as much as we need the prophets, the whistleblowers, Those who remind us that the emperor's new clothes are usually sewn together with lies and pride and greed. Typically, when someone does it, we're terrible with them. Usually what happens when somebody names the problem is our culture blames them for the problem, or they just want them to be quiet or stay in their place, basically to shut up. We like things to be smooth and polite and happy. We don't want our apple carts to get upset, even if deep down we know that really things are not the way they're supposed to be. When we're pushed by the prophets in our world to look honestly at things, and we don't have any choice, we have to look at the problems, then we're in the difficult position of wanting to do something about it. And that often leads to the even more uncomfortable realization that fixing stuff is hard, that making change is really difficult. The world's complicated. And remembering that again can make every one of us feel small and powerless. And we don't like that. It's much easier to tell the prophets to stop talking. And that's exactly what the people in Jesus' hometown tried to do when they realized what he'd grown up to be and who he'd grown up to be and what he was going to be saying. They didn't want to hear it. Well, the good news is that Jesus got away from the angry crowd that day. They didn't silence him. The Romans and the religious authorities would try again when he got to Jerusalem, but we know that God does not let that be the last word. God shone through the words and actions and the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. God is on the side of those who say what needs to be said and those who inspire us to work together to mend our broken world. I think that we need people like Autumn Pelchier who remind us of what is right, and their witness can give us courage and a good example to follow, because there will come a time for each of us when we need to speak our truth, even if we worry that no one's going to want to hear it, even when we know it's going to be difficult. Amen. I continue to hold in my prayers Tom Haddon, who's recovering in hospital in Sudbury from serious injuries he received in a snowmobile accident. And I ask you to pray for him as well. Let's open our hearts for prayer. God, Lord of all creation, lover of life and of everything, please help us to love in our very small way what you love infinitely and everywhere. We thank you that we can offer just this one prayer, and that it will be more than enough, because in reality, everything and everyone is connected, and nothing stands alone. To pray for one part is really to pray for the whole, and so we do. Help us each day to stand for love, for healing, for the good, for the diverse unity of the body of Christ in all creation, because we know that this is what you desire, as Jesus prayed, that all may be one. We offer our prayer together with all the holy names of God. We offer our prayer together with Christ our Lord. Amen. And we'll say out loud together the words of this paraphrase of the Lord's Prayer. Loving God, loving Creator, we honor you, and we honor all that you've made. Renew the whole world in the image of your love. Give us what we need for today, and a hunger to see the whole world fed. Strengthen us for what lies ahead. Heal us from the hurts of the past. Give us courage to follow your call in this moment. For your love is the only power, the only home, the only honor we need in this world and in the world to come. Amen. I extinguish the flame of one small candle. We trust that God's light continues to shine in the world. God's love warms our hearts and fires us up to love others. So our commissioning and blessing is responsive. Jesus, friend and sibling, guide and companion, teach us how to travel the road you've walked. Help us to feel the love of God that passes all understanding, so that we may be the hearts and spirits that reach out with that love in service to the world. May the God of all directions, the God of day and night, be with you today and for all time. Go out now to do the will of the Creator in the way of the Son, with the constant presence of the great Spirit. Amen.